Well, hello and welcome back to Blue Yonder Moto. I'm Alan. Well, we've all seen that one person in the workplace, haven't we? That one quiet man who sits quietly, gets on with his work efficiently and reliably. The one person who the team cannot do without, the invaluable person, the quiet man. Well, if that reliable, efficient worker was to be a motorcycle, it would be this, the NX500. What a great little motorcycle this is. So if you've seen my Is It Time to Downsize video, you will have seen that I did a fairly summarised overview on this bike based on, you know, if you're thinking about downsizing. So I thought what would be useful would be to take a slightly more focused, more in-depth view as to the real strengths and a couple of the weaknesses of this bike. So if you're thinking about an NX500, if it's the type of bike that appeals to you, this might help you in making your buying decision as to whether it's going to suit you. Now, the overall core strength of this bike is its versatility. The bike is as adept at long motorway journeys as it is at commuting through the city. You can take it touring. It's a fun package, it's economical, it's very comfortable to ride, and it's an absolute doddle to ride as well. So let's have a look at each of those things in a little bit more detail. Now, as the NX500 is an A2 bike, it needs to be friendly and approachable for inexperienced riders. And indeed it is. So let's take a quick look at the controls, shall we? First of all, the clutch. It's a really light clutch. Potentially for experienced riders, it's possibly too light. I can see how it would be friendly and non-intimidating to beginners. But to experienced riders such as myself, I like a clutch that's got a bit more feel. The Hornet, for example, is light and day better. It's a much nicer clutch, but it's simple technology. It's a cable clutch, and that's the other thing as well. The bite point as it comes from the factory, this bog standard bite point, for me is just too far out. And again, I think that's to make it less intimidating and grabby for newcomers. But I prefer a much earlier bite point. Now, the good news is, because it's a fairly simple cable clutch, you can adjust it using the knurled adjuster down there. So I've actually been able to adjust it to suit my particular tastes. Moving on, we've got the toggle switch there, which controls the dashboard, which we'll set up in a minute. You've got your indicators there, standard indicator switch, left, right, push to cancel. Again, it's this sort of reverse positioning that Honda do, where they put the indicator lower, whereas on most other bikes it's here. So they put it down there and they put the horn in the middle. Now, the horn, for me, it doesn't fall easily to hand. It's not a really good position. It doesn't work for me. And also here we have the traction control on and off as a nod to its off-road ability. And there we've got the light flasher. Moving over to the right-hand bar, we've got the kill switch here, hazards, which is quite a handy feature, and there's your starter. The brake lever, don't know if you can actually see it, the brake lever is adjustable, which is quite useful. The clutch isn't. Okay, so let's take a ride on the little NX and discuss these things some more. Okay, so let's have a quick chat about the engine, shall we? 47 horsepower and 43 newton meters of torque. The max horsepower figure at 8,500, the torque figure at 6,500 revs. Doesn't sound too exciting, does it? And to be honest, it isn't. The bike is quite willing. It's a willing rever, but you get past that max torque figure of 6.5, and she very quickly starts running out of puff. So you're never going to win any drag races on the bike. But in normal riding conditions, the bike is actually pretty good. It's got enough go to more than see off road traffic, British road traffic. What I will say though is if you're coming down from a bigger bike, say something like a 750 or 1000, and you're coming down onto this, Just be careful when you're doing your overtakes, because as I say, she feels willing, and you'll go for a quicker overtake on a faster stretch of road, and you very quickly realise that actually you're not getting past as quickly as you thought you were going to do. So just watch those faster overtakes, guys. But otherwise, pretty good. And as you can see, handling wise, very nimble. And it makes a pleasant thrumming sort of sound. It's not the most inspiring soundtrack, I have to say, with it being that 180-degree crank firing order. The good news on that, of course, is it means that the bike is quite vibe free. You just get a little bit of a tingle. It's starting to get a bit of a tingle now through the foot pegs, but it's nothing excessive. The whole thing is really smooth. Okay, so if there's one word that describes the dynamic performance of this bike, it's that it feels in balance. Everything feels in balance. If we talk about the suspension and the engine combination, the suspension doesn't feel overpowered by the engine, and the engine does feel up to modern road traffic riding, and it will take on anything, as we've said, from motorway to moorland roads to really steep ascents and descents, and of course its primary role of urban commuting. It does them all with aplomb. The suspension, as I say, isn't overpowered by that, and it's also a really good ride. These shower forks and rear shock, they work well together, and on these sort of roads, which is variable road surface, it does a really good job of ironing out the imperfections from the road, and at the same time delivering a really good compliant ride, and it feels in control. You don't feel as though the suspension is tying itself in knots, which it doesn't. As I say, considering it is budget, it actually does a pretty good job overall. So as I say, the whole thing, the whole picture is balanced. And then we can talk about the gear change as well. The gear change is really good. It's really slick, it's very light, and now I've had the clutch lever adjusted, the bike point adjusted, for me it's a really good change. I'm really enjoying using the gearbox and clutch. It works together again in balance really well. So aside from the big jump from first gear to second gear, the gearbox, I would say, is a really good effort from Honda. It's just, for me, there's too much of a gap from first, which seems very low, to second, and going around certain bends you can sort of find yourself unsure as to whether you want to be in first if it's a really slow one, or second, and often you'll find that you knock it down to first and it's just too low. So the bike as a tourer, I mentioned that I've been up to North Yorkshire and it's in about between 650 and 700 miles on the bike, and the bike performed faultlessly. It was absolutely superb. Comfort wise, it was unbelievably good. The seats, the riding position, again worked in balance. It all worked together really well, and the lightweight, as I say, combined with this nice easy open riding position, means it's not at all fatiguing to ride. So you can ride it all day and you don't get off feeling absolutely knackered. It's a really nice, easy bike to ride. It's a very friendly ride, and let's face it, when you're doing touring, unless you're doing sport touring, but when you're doing touring, that's what you want, isn't it? You want something when you arrive at your destination that you don't feel absolutely exhausted. And I have to say that this bike did that. It actually really did achieve that feat for me. I really enjoyed riding it on that tour, and as I say, I did all sorts of roads. I did fast dual carriageway, which is our freeway if you're watching in the States, so our freeways, I did that to actually get the worst of the mileage done. And then I did fast normal A roads, and then all the slower technical stuff up in the Dales, which was on the narrow country roads. And the bike really did work really well. The only negative from the tour that I found was I found the bike quite susceptible to crosswinds. Now, let me know if you don't agree with that. If that's not your experience, please drop it in the comments below. But I found it very susceptible to crosswinds. It was extremely gusty while I was away, and I was doing some quite high roads. And at times it was really difficult to keep the bike tracking in a straight line and to turn. It was that bad. And I put that susceptibility down to the fact that it's quite tall and it's quite lightweight, and I don't think the handguards help either. So as I say, that was the only blotch really on its copybook when it comes to touring. Everything else was superb. The fuel economy is absolutely awesome. It was doing well over 80 miles to the gallon while I was away, because of course it was nice, easy riding, warm engine all the time, very little urban. So as I say, I was getting well over 80 miles to the gallon, and with this 17.7 litre fuel tank that the bike has, that gives a technically theoretical range to absolutely dry of 311 miles based on the mile per gallon that I was getting. So realistically, I knew that I could run to 250 miles between tankfuls and the bike would be fine, and indeed it was. I didn't have any issues. So again, that is something, when you're touring, you don't want any sort of constantly hunting for fuel stops. That's the last thing you want, isn't it? You want to enjoy the ride and not be thinking about whether you need to fill up constantly. And as I say, this bike does that absolutely superbly. Okay, if we look at the dashboard here, we'll see the fuel indicator full at the moment. The big miss for me on this is that it doesn't have a range to empty. You get that on the big Hornet, but there's no range to empty. And for me, for touring, that is one of the crucial things that I'm looking for. And the other big miss from a touring perspective is the lack of a simple button, a simple push button cruise control on either of these bars. For me, that would just finish this package off as a touring option. Now, the brakes, like the rest of the bike, there's nothing particularly special in terms of the specification about these particular brakes, but they perform far better than you would expect. As you can see, we've just got dual piston calipers there. I'm not sure about the diameter of the disc. I'll put the specifications up on the screen, the dimensions up on the screen, but it's just a simple Nissin 2-pot caliper, twin disc now. Originally on the CB500X it was a single disc, and at the back we've got, I'm not sure if that's a double piston actually, but it's a single disc, and again I'll put the particulars up on the screen. But the bottom line is, they work really well. They don't overpower the bike, so you're not over-braked, but there's certainly more than enough to cope with the performance of the bike. As you can see, she starts immediately on the button, no hesitation whatsoever. The lights, as you can see, also are really good. I'll just put them onto main beam as well. And there we are on main beam. You've got DRLs, daytime running lights, in terms of the indicators, they're permanently on. They're not flashing in reality, they're stable, it's just the frame rate. But this is one of the things that Honda do, and I think they're loading most of the bike manufacturers in doing this, and I don't know why they insist on doing it, why they have the indicators running as daytime running lights. It can be confusing to other road users, in my opinion. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Now, on my initial review, I did praise the seat. And for me, I've had absolutely no problems with this seat. And again, the passenger seat, although it's never been used, it does look really well padded and very broad. As I say, I've had no problems with that seat. But if you read the forums, there are a lot of people who are a little bit critical of it. Now, I'm not sure what their expectations are from the seat. As I say, I find it particularly comfortable. It's not GS comfortable, but it's comfortable enough. And given the price of the bike, I think it's more than adequate. Now let's have a quick chat about the screen. The screen, unfortunately, is non-adjustable. It looks as though using this as a lever, it should be, but it's not. That's just a bar that you can attach your phone or your GPS or whatever to. but it doesn't look very big, does it? It's got the scoop here for aerodynamics, but it actually does do the job pretty well. It does a pretty good job of deflecting the worst of the air over the ride, and it keeps you reasonably dry and offers good weather protection. Again, another extra I've had fitted is the Honda handguards, which are not proper off-road handguards, but they do a job, again, in keeping the elements off you. So particularly in winter, I find handguards in the UK are an absolute essential. Okay, so we've spoken about the engine and how it's capable of doing motorway, freeway type work. Let's have a look at the bike in action on the A1 dual carriageway. Let's try a roll-on test from 70 to 80 to simulate overtaking on the motorway. So let's get it up to 70 and full throttle 80. It's not the fastest, but it will do it. It's probably enough to actually do what you want it to do, but no more. There's not an awful lot more in hand. Well, what's the bike like off-road? Because after all, it is an ADV bike. Well, I'll just show you a short clip of me going down a very sandy track. It's only a short one, but give you a feel for how the bike rides on those sort of surfaces. Well, as you saw there, the bike is more than capable of dealing with light tracks and trails. Quite a sandy track that, and it did it quite well. With better tyres, it would cope even better on those sort of surfaces. For me, what let it down, I didn't really get on with the standing position. And I think in common with a lot of other people who've made this comment, for me, the foot pegs are just too small. They're not really suited for off-road work. They're only really good for road use, and also they don't work very well with adventure boots. Well, for the £6,800 there or thereabouts asking price, the bike is reasonably well equipped. But I did had the Honda centre stand and the handguards, which I think really improved it. And post-purchase, I've also added that rear luggage rack. Okay then, let's do a little bit of summing up, shall we? So first of all, who is this bike for? Well, quite honestly, I think it covers a whole range of bases. The only people it's probably not for, it wouldn't suit, is people who are looking for outright performance, because it definitely is not a performance motorcycle. And it wouldn't be particularly good for long distance tourers, people who really want to use the bike on the autobahn and the autoroute to actually get to their long distance destination very quickly. It's not really suited for that type of work. But for everything else, it will do the job, and it will do the job brilliantly. So if you're an inexperienced rider, the bike is really friendly and approachable. It will look after you. Also, the bike is quite suitable for more experienced riders such as myself and probably a lot of my audience. And again, if you're getting on in years a little bit and you don't want those big heavy bikes, this bike will suit you because its ergonomics are really approachable. It's got a really good, comfortable, open riding position. It's not heavy, it's sub 200 kg. So it ticks a lot of boxes for experienced riders as well. The bike will also do a little bit of off-road trails riding. If you change the tyres to something a little bit more off-road suitable from these Dunlops, the bike is quite capable. It's got limited ground clearance, but you can rectify that. Have a look at the Patch Bandit videos. And for somebody who's looking for something that is 100% reliable, again, this bike will tick the box. It's cheap to run, and it feels like the engine, with basic routine maintenance and servicing, will easily run to 100,000 miles. It really does give you that confidence. So then, would I recommend the NX500? Well, yes, unreservedly I would recommend it. I think if you've got the opportunity to go and test ride one, and they are available in most UK dealerships for test rides, go and take one for a ride, and take it for a decent ride. Ask, for at least an hour, get a good 30 miles of mixed type of roads, and I think you'll come away very impressed. As I say, I can wholeheartedly recommend it. And of my two bikes, this and the Hornet CB 1000 SP, don't say it in the presence of the Hornet, but I think this might actually be my favourite bike. I just can't stop riding this bike. It really brings a smile to your face every time you ride it. And that's what riding is all about. It's just, as I say, just pop the garage door up and get this bike out and ride it in most circumstances. And the Hornet really now is only coming out on those special rides. For everything else, this bike does it. This bike does it for me. So, okay then, I hope you've enjoyed this review of the NX500. If you have, please remember, give it a like. It's really important that you do so. If you've got any comments, drop them down below. And please remember, if you haven't subscribed, please do. There's no cost to you involved in subscription. Just hit that subscribe. It really does help the channel. So until the next time, please remember, keep it shiny side up. And I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.